Hi, Newcastle Startup Week. It's an absolute pleasure to be here at virtual Newcastle Startup Week. It's I'm really delighted that it's still going ahead, and there's so many people sharing so much great information, despite the fact that we can't all be in one room. But even if we can't be all in one room, we can still share ideas, thoughts, and things like what Paul's doing. I think are great for helping people to continue their own professional development. I think a lot of people, myself included, have had a lot of time to sit back and think about what it is they want, what it is they want to achieve. And I guess Newcastle Startup Week has a bigger part to play than it ever did before, really, in that people who have a business are needing to professionally develop, and people that don't have a business but are thinking of starting a business, what better time than now? So anyway, enough of that. I just thought I'd put that out there. So welcome to my office, my home office. I'm going to talk today a little bit about the wonderful world of bids and tenders. So I thought I'd start off with something a little bit different. I talk quite a lot about bids and tenders and some of the ins and outs of the opportunities, where you can find them, how you can find them, why you should or shouldn't bid. But I think whether you're interested in bidding or not, this is a little tool which I use regularly with clients, and I thought I would share it because I think it could be useful to anyone and everyone, really. Bidding is very much about decision making, as is everything in life. Your life is essentially dictated by the decisions you do and don't make. And making decisions in business in particular can be hard. Are you making the right decision? Are you being led by your heart or by your head, or external things influencing you? So I have this little tool which I regularly share with clients to help them make some big decisions, usually around tenders, but actually you can apply it to anything. And a friend of mine actually said he used it for buying a house after I showed him it, and he bought a house. Hopefully he lives there happily ever after, but we shall see. So I'm going to do a little screen share, and the wonderful world of, I'm going to use the highest technology going here. I'm going to use Microsoft Paint. There it is in all its glory. Yes, it still exists. So this is hopefully going to help you in decision making, whether that's in bidding or whether that's in anything else in life. So I said my friend used it for deciding which house to buy. So the example I'm going to give is how to choose which house to buy, but you can apply this to absolutely everything. I use it all the time, and I really think it can be useful. So that's a line, and I need to type something. So if you're going to buy a house, let's say you've got two options. So you've got an option here. Let's call this house 1. And then you've got an option over here. Let's call this house 2. So you've got two decisions. This could be anything. It could be whether you work with client number 1 or client number 2, whether you recruit person number 1 or person number 2, whether you take an office space or work at home, whatever the decision is, you can apply this to absolutely anything. So I've done houses. Let's go with houses. So you list your options along the top here, and then your priorities down the side. So your priority could be 4 bedrooms, let's say. Should have come up with something more business related. And how important is having 4 bedrooms? Well, if you've got 3 kids and you want them all to have a bedroom each, let's say that's 10 out of 10. So that's 10 out of 10 importance. What else is important? It's got to have a pool. Is that important? Maybe it's a nice to have. Let's call that a 5 out of 10 on importance scale. And then you might want parking off-road. Let's say you've got a car and you love your car and it's pretty important to you, 7 out of 10. So then what you do, really simple, you rate the different options. So house number 1, yes, it's got 4 bedrooms, 10. Great. House number 2, actually it's got 3, so that gets a 7. House number 1, it's got a pool, but it's not a very big one, so it gets a 5. House number 2 doesn't have a pool. Off-road parking, house number 1 doesn't have any off-road parking. House number 2 has a garage and a huge drive. It's a 10. So what you do then is you times the importance factor by the rating that you've given it. So this one, 10 times 10 is 100. This is where I'm going to fail on the maths and look really stupid. 7 times 10 is 70. 5 fives, 25. 0 fives are 0. Then the importance factor here was 7. 7 times 0 is 0. And here it's 10. 10 times the important factor is 70. And what you do is you see if I can use another snazzy shape. You add these. Oh, nearly. There we go. Add these up in each one. So here we've got 125. This one we've got 70, and 70 we've got 140. So the winner of this is in fact house number 2. But I hope you can see how that can apply to anything, any decision you make in business. I just thought it was a useful thing to share because it takes out, if you're looking at houses, for example, it's something that everyone can relate to. You might say, actually, but I really, really want a pool. But actually, number 2 is much more practical based on what your priorities are. So you can apply this to absolutely anything. If you've got a tough decision in business, whether it might even be starting a business, should I start a business? Should I get a job? What are the factors? Job security, wage security, potential future satisfaction. You can do it with absolutely anything. It's a really simple tool to use, and I hope that it'll be useful to you. So I shall stop sharing my screen and I shall get back to the world of bidding. So bidding is very much a decision-based sector. You've got lots of decisions to make. So the world of bids and tenders is worth roughly 264 billion pounds per year. And I know that's really hard to get your head around. I mean, even £1 billion, I can't imagine it. If you said £100, I can imagine that. I've had £100 once or twice. Didn't last long. But I've never had £1 billion. 264 billion is a massive number. And lots of people say, well, I'm not in those realms. So let me break it down a little more. A third of those contracts are awarded to small and medium-sized businesses. So that's around 88 billion. So we're getting closer to what is understandable and relatable. If you can relate to the billions, congratulations. I wish I was you. And so 88 billion. So that works out every day. The government is paying out to small and medium-sized businesses £340 million, getting closer to relatable, to small and medium-sized businesses across the UK. So I'll break that down even further. The average contract value that's been awarded is £164,000 over 3 years. So a little over £50,000 a year contract, which to many businesses similar to myself, £50,000 contract will be great. I would love that. So the market is huge, but actually a third of those contracts are going to small businesses, like I say, and that's not just chance. There's government legislation that means that they prioritize giving a third of those contracts to small and medium-sized businesses. Every government organization is targeted to hit those targets, to engage with smaller businesses and to look upon them favorably, to write the questions in a way which encourages people to bid for them. Another fact that I came across today, which I was doing a bit of research for this, which really shocked me, is 10% of opportunities out there, there's only one submission for. So if you've got £164,000 opportunity out there, you might be the only bidder, which would obviously be great. So it's a huge market. The public sector buys everything and anything you can imagine, from pens to water bottles. I'm just looking around me on the desk, to notebooks, to computers, to new highways, to schools, to cleaning windows, to everything and anything you can imagine. I mean, we get some real crazy, unusual stuff come out from time to time. There was a tender out just a couple of weeks ago, which was for the provision of canned tomatoes and canned pineapples. So if you think your sector's too niche, think again. Honestly, they're buying everything and anything. We've got a regular one that we see coming up is bread. Tenders for bread in prisons. Apparently, it's a big business. They must have a lot of toast in prison, or lots of sandwiches. But there's literally everything and anything, and the more niche, the better, really. If you're a super, super, super niche business, and you find one tender opportunity, you might be the only bidder. If you're in a sector which is a little bit more competitive, the chances of there being one bidder are much lower. If you're, for example, a security provider, typically there's quite a lot of security companies going after tenders. Doesn't mean they're not winnable, but it just means they're more competitive. You just need to be a little bit smart about what you're bidding for and why you're bidding for it. And if that's you, and you are a company that is looking at tenders but thinking, is this one too competitive for me? Reach out to me. We're happy to talk to you. We're happy to look at tender documents and give you advice. I'm not trying to sell you something here. I'm happy to help people to find the right opportunities to bid for. So if you're sat there thinking, I would like to get into the world of tenders, there's probably a couple of places to start. In the UK, there's a website called Contracts Finder. Contracts Finder is a good resource. It doesn't cover every tender in the UK, but it's a good start to start looking and start understanding what's out there. It covers probably about 40 to 60% of the marketplace, but there's actually about 3,500 tender portals across the UK. Once you start looking at opportunities and you're thinking, oh yeah, that £1 billion contract, I'd love to win that. It's not quite that simple. The public sector aren't that daft. So you can typically win a contract worth around 40% of your turnover. So I'm going to try and do some maths here again. I didn't triple last time, but there's every chance I will this time. So you can win a contract worth about 40% of your turnover. So if you're a company with, say, £100,000 turnover, you can win a contract that's worth about £40,000 per year. Average contract's about 3 years, so you can bid for a contract that's worth £120,000. We've seen some strange times recently with everything that's gone on with COVID and lockdown, and people traditionally have said to me that they don't like the nature of bidding, about how it's so impersonal. Now, I've been saying that bidding's been social distancing since day one. You can't talk to who you're buying from. You can't build relationships with them, but that can work in your favor. You don't have to go to a networking event to meet them, although it's nice to go to networking events and meet people. You actually just put together a submission, submit it to the buyer. If you can match their questions, you can match their specification, and you can provide them a good price, you can win a significant contract. It is really the most antisocial way of doing business, but can be a great way of doing business. You're £100,000 turnover company, and you're looking at that example I've just given, and you can work out how to win a tender, which isn't rocket science. I'm certainly no genius, and I've won over £7 billion worth of contracts over the last 7 years. You look at that, you can win a £40,000 contract, but there's nothing stopping you bidding for 3, 4, 5 of those. You win 3 of those, and all of a sudden you are well on track to being a scale-up company. So that gives you an idea of the sector, the types of opportunities. If you come across some tough decisions in there, you've got a little decision-making tool. I hope that's useful. I'm waiting for someone to get in touch with me and say, I like that. I won't hold my breath. So the world of bidding, it's not hugely complex. People tend to get put off by the number of documents, the amount of things that I have to read in there. Now, there's 2 main things to look out for, which are typically a pre-qualification questionnaire or a supplier questionnaire. That's usually pretty long, but it's just general information. It's, who are your company? Do you have the right insurance? Have you been convicted of this, that, and the other? It's general information. Once you start going through it, it tends to fly by. Either at the end of that document or in a separate document, which is typically called an invitation to tender or response document, you'll have some quality questions. The quality questions in a tender are asking you how you'll do things, how will you deliver the contract. So this is where you can get an idea of the scale of the submission you need to put in. The pricing, I tend not to get too involved with the pricing, but you'll know your pricing, and the pricing documents usually aren't absolutely massive unless you supply like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of widgets and things like that, and you've got to go through a big pricing schedule and fill them in. They're typically it's typically not a huge piece of work. Or again, if it's something more specialist, if you're a civil engineering firm and you've got a price of design of a job, that might be a little bit more complex. But actually looking at the written side of things, you can usually have a look and go, okay, we've got 5 questions here. How are you going to deliver? How are you going to manage health and safety? How are you going to report performance? How are you going to manage environmental factors? And what are you going to do for your corporate social responsibility? That might be the 5 questions. And it'll say, for each response, you're limited to 1 page or you're limited to 1,000 words. So you can have a look at that and get an idea of how much work's involved. Because bidding is very much weighing up that risk and reward. You're probably going to have to put in a little bit of time. It might take you a couple of days to do, especially if you're not familiar with it. But if you think about the size of the opportunity and the amount of work that goes into it, that's when you can make a decision of, is this the type of thing I want to go for? People ask me lots of questions about bidding, and there's a few that crop up consistently. One of them is, well, isn't it already a done deal? Hasn't someone already won it? No, that's not the case. There's obviously always the odd one, but there's always the odd kind of bad apple, isn't there? There's always one person who will do something a bit shady. But luckily, the steps have been put in place to tackle that. We've been working with the Cabinet Office. And one of the things we said is they need more transparency in the bid process. If anything, just for perceptions. So as of the end of this month, every tender submission, every tender document will include details of how to raise a complaint or a concern about a tender process. So hopefully that should help to improve the perceptions. But from our experience, you can usually see it. You can usually tell in the way the questions are asked. There'll be something that's really, really specific that you think, why are they asking that? Who's that aimed at? Or there'll be some specific requirement that maybe aligns to a capability of an existing provider, and you think, I think that one is one to pass on. But in that case, raise it as a concern to the Cabinet Office and say, I believe that this question's in there to favour the existing provider. And it might be. But most of the time, 95% of the time, it's a fairly transparent process. The other thing we get asked about is, why am I not winning? Why am I not winning this tender? And the most common reason people don't win a tender submission is they don't answer the questions. As stupid as that might sound, if you've ever done a tender, you'll understand. You read the questions and you think, I want to tell them this, I want to tell them that. You've got ideas in your head, you know your business, and you're like, we're brilliant at this, I need to tell them this. But if they're not asking for it and you're telling them it, they don't want to know it. There's a strict marking criteria. They tell you how they're going to score you, tell you what an excellent response looks like. An excellent response will include details of this, that, and the other. And if what they want is not what you want to tell them, and the two don't align, you're not going to win that tender. You need to take away your own kind of preconceived thoughts about what you want to tell them, and you've got to tell them what they're asking you for. And the way that we tend to do that is we break down the questions. So you might have, like I mentioned before, 1,000-word response or a 1-page response. So look at the question. If it's asking you to explain something, or it's asking you to describe something or evidence something, they're very different things. Evidencing something is, okay, what have we done? Explain something is, okay, this is how we are going to do something. Little nuances like that help you make sure that you're answering the question correctly. And can the question break down into subsections. How are you going to deliver? I mean, how are you going to deliver your services? No matter what you do, whether it's the most complex or the most simple, you could write reams and reams and reams about every aspect of it, but try and be logical about it. What do they want to know? What are they asking you in the question? What are they asking you in the specification? Have they got any specific requirements for that site or that service that they need that you can break down and say, actually, we know you want this, so this is how we do this. And we always say that once you've broken it down into those subsections, say, yes, I can do it. This is how I'm going to do it. And this is what I've done previously. Because the process is there to give the buyer confidence that you are the best person for the job, that you can just do it. And there's not going to be a hassle. You're not going to be 5 months down the line going, can't deliver this. It's an exercise in giving them confidence that you know what they want and you know what you're doing and you can deliver against that. So I think that probably gives you a bit of an overview of the sector. So I mentioned in the beginning we have two companies, Bid and Research and Opportunity. Bid and Research, we've been specialising in bid writing for the last 7 years. We write across everything in every and any sector that you can imagine, and that process that I've just explained about breaking it down and structuring your responses and following a process, that works for every sector, because that process has been designed to meet government, public sector procurement rules and how they mark things. So hopefully that'll help a few people. The other thing, we have a company called OPPORTUNI, very much in the spirit of Newcastle Startup Week and trying something new and pivoting and all that good stuff. We took time over lockdown and we built some software which helps people to find the right tenders, make sure the right tenders are coming through to individuals. Because another statistic we found today is 99% of companies don't even know that a tender is out in their sector. And even when it's awarded, it's passed them by. Only 1% of your sector is typically finding out about tender opportunities, and that's across the board. That's very much a generalization, obviously. Some sectors will be very much in touch with tenders, and others will be, might not know anything about it. But I think the thing that I would say is just try to be aware of it. I'm very much an advocate for bidding. I want people to bid for things. We are working with the Cabinet Office to try and improve the bidding process, try and make it easier, specifically for small and medium-sized businesses to access these opportunities, because there's some brilliant businesses that we come across who should be providing services to the public sector, and they're not. And there's, I won't talk about the ones that shouldn't be providing services, but there's plenty of businesses that should, and there's barriers in the way, whether it's perceptions or whether it's knowledge or knowing where to go or how to find things that have traditionally stopped people, and we're keen to help people overcome those. So if there's ever anything that I can help with, if you want to tell me my decision-making tool is rubbish, or if you want to tell me it's good, please say it's good. Feel free to reach out to me. But thank you to Paul and the team for letting me take part in Newcastle Startup Week. I think it's a brilliant thing, and I think the more people involved, the better. The more people sharing knowledge, ideas, and experience, the better. So thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Feel free to reach out to me, Tim Ward. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'll look up my company's Bid and Research or Opportunity. Thank you very much, and I shall end this now. Thanks.